you kind of lost me at data transfer. I don't know what's going on.
FTP, file transfer protocol.
Now, what we have to remember is that not every position can be changed to every other position.
And making sure that the users we have now stay happy and stay on while trying to attract some other people to play.
They make
Hustle
my
home, but
that.
yeah. No, that's over in a heartbeat. Ain't got any problem with that.
Welcome to another This, That, and the Other episode. Don't have any guest scheduled for tonight, so it'll be just me, but hopefully I can get some good information out there for some of the new folks. As many of you have seen, apparently some of the new promotions by the What If Sports staff are very effective. We've got quite a few new players on the Gridiron Dynasty platform, and definitely happy to see that. Always looking for a more population growth than we've had in the past. So looking for that boom, if you will, to get some of these leagues or some of these worlds rather filled up and hopefully minimize the number of sims that we have to play each year. It's always a little more challenging, a little more rewarding, definitely a lot more fun to play against humans versus those worthless sims. But anyway, what we're going to try to do in a couple show, probably maybe not the next show, but the one after, not decided yet, but I'm going to put together some type of tutor session, basically specifically for the new people, primarily to give those who are currently at D3 an opportunity to see what the game is really like at the next higher level, which for many of us, that means D2 and above. And there are so many things, as we've said on this show many times before, that are available at D2 and above that you don't have the ability to see at D3. And as I posted today, there's quite a bit of bells and whistles in this game, and the largest majority of those are at D2 and above. So for those people who happen to be seeing this who are still at D3, have never experienced the upper levels before, don't let D3 frustrate you. In frustration being the lack of ability to control your team or set your team up the way that you would really like to do so, specifically when it comes to some of the positions, primarily running back. You know, we have in D3, the running back position, we have no way to use a receiving running back, no way to use a fullback unless you manipulate your playing time and the depth charts, which is quite cumbersome, quite difficult at D3. At D2, you'll see that you have the ability to not only have running back, but a more specialized grouping in the depth chart. You've actually got a position for fullbacks, as many as you've got on the roster for that matter. Same being said for your speed backs. You've also got a running back 1 option and a running back 2 option that you can utilize to the best of your needs or desire. You can set those up for whatever responsibilities you want for that particular position. Same is true for wide receiver, tight end. Every position has more than one slot that you can put them in. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's 5 opportunities across the board from quarterback I think there's 3 for quarterback, 5 for running back. You've got a variety for tight end, O-line, D-line, linebacker, and of course your DBs as well. So having said that, look forward to actually figuring out how to make this happen. I'm confident it will happen. We'll be able to get some of the new folks an opportunity to see what it is that they're missing and hopefully entice them through that means to stay on long enough to advance through the levels and really enjoy the game for what it is. One of the things that I like to share is the fact that D3 kind of lets you see how the platform works. You know, you get familiar with the forums, you get familiar with the site mail, as well as some of the recruiting processes, as well as some of the game planning to a certain extent. And you get to knock off some of that initial trepidation of taking over the game and running your own team without having a whole lot of tutorials out there or an up-to-date current knowledge base. So D3 is where you can shake some of that off and get a better understanding for what the platform is about. And then, like I said, D2 and above, you really get to open it up and really get to do things the way you want. I'm going to try to do some screen share momentarily here on this show. But before I do, I don't want to forget, a gentleman asked me about position changes, specifically changing position of a player and then deciding that, no, you don't want to have him there after all, and changing him back. Many of us will talk about the good old days. In the good old days, you could do that. For instance, you could take a tight end, convert him to a fullback. He would lose some of the category values, but if he was a fullback for you and you actually hit that change position button, not just where you can initially see what it would be, but you went the next step and hit the change position button and actually made him a fullback. In the old days, you could actually go back in and convert him to a tight end, and he would revert back to the original settings and the categories and the values for those particular categories that he had as a tight end before you made the position change. So essentially, it was back to square one. Nothing changed. You didn't have a penalty for it or anything. That is no longer the case. And what I mean by that is, once you make that position change, anything else you do to that player as far as changing his position, whether it's that year, the following year, or subsequent years, you will see a major penalty and points. And if I'm wrong on this, somebody please let us know, because this is just experience on my part. Primarily, an example is I did use a tight end and converted him to a fullback. Very good fullback. The following season, I was able to actually draft a full-fledged running back who had better attributes at the fullback position than the tight end I had converted the previous year. So my initial thought was, why don't we just convert this guy back to a tight end, and lo and behold, everything will balance out, I'm sure, because now it's a sophomore year. I'll lose a little bit here and there. No, when I did the test to run him back to a tight end, his technique fell through the floor. His work ethic dropped down to next to nothing. His game instinct was gone. Strength, almost every category dropped well over 50, 60%. So that made me think, well, maybe it's just because I'm putting him back to the position where he originally started. Maybe that's the issue. So I looked at changing him to a wide receiver, same results. Changing him to an old lineman, it didn't work for the running back. So the issue was, anytime that you change a player, and I don't know how long this has been in the game now, but anytime you change a player, you're pretty much stuck with him at that position. Just because any additional change in position, you'll take such a huge hit on all the categories that he's absolutely not worth it. Absolutely not worth doing a second position change. So to the gentleman that asked about that, there's your answer. Hopefully it keeps you from making a bad mistake. And, God forbid we don't share information and let somebody walk into a trap, but it happens. And that's one of the benefits of the show. There's a lot of people get an opportunity to learn from our mistakes. And when I say our mistakes, I'm talking about some of the vets that have been on this platform for years and years and years. I know there's currently a thread going around about mistakes that you've learned, or mistakes that you've made that you've learned from and wouldn't do again. And, kind of facetiously, I answered in that thread, and I said, staying at D3 too long. And that brings us back to our opening. I stayed at D3 forever, and in some of the worlds. And it just, I don't know why I chose to do that. But, now that I've gotten all the way up through the ranks, coached elites, had success throughout the ranks, I can't see me staying in D3. I've dropped down a couple of times or two just to see if there's any changes. But for the most part, definitely move out of D3 into the upper levels as soon as you can. Each one has their ability to have those additional bells and whistles, as I mentioned. But D2 recruiting is different than recruiting at D1 AA, which is different than recruiting at D1A, which is different than recruiting at D1A Elite. So while some of the opportunities and options are there, there's so many differences as far as the various aspects of the game. You're recruiting, what you look for in potential and work ethic as you move up the levels. All those things become a little bit different. And that's the benefit of having a mentor program that we posted on the board today. You know, getting some of these coaches available, getting their name out there so the new folks don't have to wonder or search out somebody that could possibly help them, whether it's a conference mate, etc. But they can go to that thread and actually pick up a name that is essentially a coach who's volunteering his time and site mail that individual directly. And that brings me to what I'm going to try to do is show how you can site mail. So let me see if I can get this working. Bear with me. Okay, I am going to try to share this screen. See what happens. Okay. Hopefully everybody's seeing the New Mexico team that I have. And you can see site mail is one of the options when you go to the What If Sports header tab. You've got my locker, site mail, etc. When you go into the site mail tab, and I'll click it, but I don't think it'll show it. I'll probably have to share it. And I don't want to reveal some of the folks I've been in discussion with. Some of them have requested to remain privileged. So suffice it to say, when you click this, it'll take you to the site mail option where you can essentially type in that coach's name, and you can then have a direct discussion with him via site mail. And it's one of those things that depends on how often that particular coach is on the board or on the internet or the game. Some coaches don't check their site mail very often. I know that the little bell up there by your profile picture has a 1 or 2 in red to kind of indicate you've got some site mail messages. But again, it depends on how often that coach actually pays attention to that. So don't be discouraged. If you do reach out to someone and they don't answer you right away, whether it's the same day, the next day, just be patient. Or you can even hit them up on the board. Sometimes they're more apt to see it there where you just post a message on the board saying, hey, Coach so-and-so sent you site mail. And then once you make the contact, of course, go back and delete that particular post, because what's the purpose? You know, it's just cluttering up the board. Let's see. I think there was something else I wanted to show you. Bear with me on this. Let's see if I can get that up there. We're going to share that particular one file, coach's profile. There you go. Okay, and that is my coach's profile. And as you can see, it shows the overall record for you in that world. And in this case, again, it's my Eastern New Mexico University team in Warner. I'm very secure. There's my reputation, loyalty, national championships, conference championships, your records, all that kind of good stuff that you'd ever want to know. Now, the beauty is if you look at this page and you're looking at another coach, in other words, it's not your resume, it's someone else's. For instance, let's go to North Carolina. See if I can pull that one up. And bear with me. We're going to pull up a different coach. And I don't know who this is, so you'll have to forgive me. Let's get Maldito, I guess it is. Okay, let's see if I can share the Maldito. Bear with me. Okay. Let's see, is this the one? I believe that's it there. Let's see. Yes, you can see Maldito. If you click on the Coach Maldito link right here, it'll actually take you to his profile. And if you go to his profile, I don't know why this doesn't just show up straight across the board. I have to open up each individual one. Craziness. Okay, so I'm going to share that. So now you can see that we're at Maldito's profile page, and this shows you everything he's done on GD or What If Sports. And if you click on his Gridiron Dynasty, he doesn't have any current teams, but you can see that his coaching record is there, conference championships, national championships. But as far as reaching out via site mail, if you scroll down on an active coach, there'll be a method to site mail him down here. And since this guy is inactive, it was a piss poor example. So let me try to find another one. Bear with me. Trust me. Let's see. I know everybody's waiting with eager anticipation. Let's see. I'll get Bob up here. There we go. Let's see if I can't share this one. This is a conference mate of mine. Let's see. Yes. And there I'm sharing it. So now this gentleman is in fact active. So because he's active, you should be able to see his name, his site mail available to you at the bottom. No, why not? Why is this not working? Let's see something here. Bear with me. Damn it, I'm going to show you. I'm determined to show you. Okay, I see what I'm doing. My bad. It's not on the individual coaching profile screen for that particular game. It's on his main listing. So down here, you can see the send site mail. My apologies. Sorry about that confusion. Should have worked that out beforehand. Going by memory. So as you can see, you can actually reach out to a coach if you know his name. And on the board, you can click his name, same thing, and get to his profile page that way and send site mail by clicking on the site mail link. But anyway, there you go. Just wanted to share that with you. Convoluted, I know, you'll have to forgive me. But we're going to do what we can when we can. So more importantly, though, is I'm one of those people that are on the boards quite a bit. I'm actively involved in the game, day to day, answering site mail, dealing with, I've got relationships with some of these coaches outside of What If Sports. We get on the phone, we text, we call, we chat, whatever the case may be. And the good thing is it's a friendship of people who've probably never even met in person. So I know my buddy Phil Weist, he keeps talking about having a reunion of sorts, if you will, a reunion, a meet and greet in Vegas. And I'm all for it. And I told him he would have mass participation. All he's got to do is front the airfare and the hotel rooms. I don't see a problem with that. But the good thing is you can reach out to some of these folks and, establish a relationship with them. They may not give you the entire playbook, or coaching philosophy, what have you, for their operation. But when it comes to the basics, or even some of the upper level basic stuff, they'll reach out and provide you information. Just talk to them. Don't be afraid. I know a lot of online gaming worlds, a lot of animosity, a lot of hold your cards close to your chest type mentality. I haven't found that to be the case here. But as I said, they're not going to give you, the keys to everything they're doing. They're not going to tell you exactly what works best and what doesn't to garner them the success they've had. But they will share things with you to at least get you on the path to success, to at least make your play a little less challenging and a little less confusing. The good thing is anybody on this board has something to offer. Anybody on this platform, I should say, has something to offer, whether it's an experience of what not to do, which is very valuable, or an opportunity to share something they've discovered as a secret. And there's quite a few of them that some of the old hats have. A lot of them have shared it. I know I've caught grief from quite a few sharing some of the old secrets, if you will. And, you shouldn't be telling those new guys that. Well, if you're good enough, that one secret's not going to get you beat. So just deal with it. And I'll share two of them just because I feel froggy. My biggest secret that I like to use or exercise is, of course, when it comes to recruiting a kicker or a punter. I've had success with just one of the two, either a kicker or a punter. I've had, I would say, the best success with just a punter and letting him kick my field goals, letting him kick my extra points. I can't remember the last time I had a punter miss an extra point or a field goal. If he's a decent punter, miss a field goal within 40 yards, you're going to have that, but I don't see it standing out just because he's a punter versus having a kicker with similar stats or similar category qualities doing the same thing. I don't see enough difference there to warrant filling that kicker position. Now, for the secret aspect, there have been times where, and a lot of coaches do this, they'll recruit a quarterback every year. So you've got 5 recruits or 5 quarterbacks on your roster. The mindset is that, you're going to be throwing the ball. And that's when you want to have a good quarterback, is when you're throwing the ball. If you're running the ball, who cares what kind of quarterback you got? If he's never going to toss it, screw it. Don't worry about it. But for those teams that are primarily focused on either balanced or pass-heavy attacks, you want to have that quarterback that can throw the ball. So, again, the mindset is to have 5. You redshirt one every year. He moves up, becomes a redshirt freshman. Your new guy is a freshman. You redshirt him the next year. The previous one's now a redshirt sophomore. He's a redshirt freshman. You get a new guy. You get the drift. However, there are times when doing that results in a underclassman actually becoming the better player than the upperclassman who would be next in line to take over that position. For instance, let's say I've got 5 quarterbacks, and my junior quarterback, who's a redshirt, is now lower in quality than my sophomore redshirt player. So essentially, in the coming year, when that senior's gone, my junior's not even going to be starting. It's going to be that sophomore. And chances are that my backup is going to be close enough to that junior to where having that junior as a backup is pretty much worthless. You want to get those young guys playing time. So what I do in those instances is I look for other positions that don't have depth. And what I mean by depth is not necessarily playing quality depth. It's depth for the sake of getting the quality guys, your starters, some rest. An example that I'll share is, let's say, wide receivers. For whatever reason, I've got 3 wide receivers on my roster. I run a pro set offense, and I have 2 wide receivers that are in every play. So only having 3 on the roster, that one spare or that backup is going to have to sub out for the other 2 quite frequently. He may or may not, degrade in position to where he's not really a worthwhile substitute for some reason. What I like to do is take that junior quarterback who's basically dead weight at this point and convert him, even though he is losing a tremendous amount of category value. Basically, I'm ruining him, unfortunately, but I'll convert him to a wide receiver. So now I've got 4 wide receivers. Now, the value now is that when I am in a game plan and I have it set up to where my starters are out of the game and I'm bringing in the substitutes in order to give those starters a rest, before I made that conversion and position change and I only had 3 wide receivers, remember, I'm running the pro set, so I've always got 2 wide receivers. Now I've got my 2 starters and a backup. Well, even in those times when I'm resting and I'm blowing the opponent out, and I want to get my starters off the field and get the young guys some playing time, or just rest the guys for whatever reason, I'm always going to have a starter in the game. So they're not going to get that rest. Now, that's critical when you're in a heated battle where the game is close and you do want to get those guys rest so you can use them for a specific play or later on. Having that additional wide receiver, even though he's a piece of trash, will allow you to put those two starting wide receivers on your bench and have the third wide receiver and that quarterback who became a wide receiver in the game. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, you've just degraded your wide receiver positions. Holy cow, what's going on? Yeah, but I'm running the ball. This is a running play. Do I give a damn what wide receivers I have on the field to catch passes? No, because I'm not throwing to them. So I'm using a running play to get my wide receivers out of the game and put in subs so that my primary wide receivers are rested from when I do put in a pass play. So hopefully you've been able to follow that. I know it's quite wordy and drawn out, but the example rings true through a variety of positions. And, I've changed underclassmen quarterbacks. For instance, I may, for whatever reason, have drafted 2 freshman quarterbacks, and now it's their senior year or sophomore year. And that sophomore quarterback, one of them is head and shoulders above the other. And I don't have a punter or a kicker on the team. And there's really nothing good in the recruiting pool. So I'll convert a sophomore quarterback to a punter. More times than not, I can't really call any time where the punter's work ethic dropped. It always goes up. He may take a hit in technique. His strength stays the same. I think the game instinct takes a bit of a hit, but for the most part, a sophomore quarterback with a good strength rating and a decent tech rating to start with makes a very usable punter. And again, I have not wasted a slot by carrying a quarterback that I'm not going to use eventually on the roster. Similar to, the situation that you have when you've got a punter and a kicker on the roster. You're wasting a position when it's my setup, when it's my team design. And I like being able to use that additional spot somewhere else, primarily in a formation demand heavy offense or defense. And what I mean by that is if I'm running a wishbone, I may use that extra available recruiting position to get that extra running back to be in that wishbone. Or if it's shotgun, to get that extra wide receiver. Or if I'm running a nickel, to get that extra DB. So you're able to actually get an extra boost, if you will, to your team makeup by only carrying one of the two. Other coaches out there will swear by it. You got to have one of each. There are times when I agree with that because of the success of your team, the makeup of your conference, all those factors come in. For instance, if you're in a loaded conference where everybody is really, really close in quality and the coaching quality, the roster quality, and somebody different's winning the conference championship every year, that might be a situation where I look to get that one little boost of difference maker and maybe getting a kicker that can kick that 50-yard field goal, because in that environment, it dictates that you want to have a kicker who can get you that 3 points when you need it. But then again, I always talk myself into the belief that if your team is good enough, you're not going to need a field goal to win the game. You're going to be able to salt away your win at the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter, and just pretty much run out the clock, wear your opponent down, and win by double digits. But again, there are times when that's not an option, and a kicker or a punter, one of each on the team, could in fact be beneficial to you. I just roll my dice and go with the fact that I'm a punter only type of coach, and I try to structure each of my teams that way, even if it means in the subsequent year I'm cutting a kicker that may have been a sim a year or two, because simply that extra position, again, is very helpful to me. Now, that's a long way to say what I had to say, but again, you get the picture. As far as another position change that I like to make, and I've mentioned it, is a tight end who's got some really good strength, good quality blocking, and converting him to a fullback because the fullback's primary responsibility is blocking. And if you're running a pro set, an I set, a wishbone, having that additional blocker rating in that offensive formula tends to prove quite successful when you're running the ball, particularly inside. If you've got a big bull of a fullback who is got good strength quality, good blocking quality, he's going to do good things for you, and he's going to benefit your team. One thing before we close out here is I do want to mention that some of the new folks may fall into the same trap that I found myself in. And that is when it comes to the information at the bottom of a recruit's profile. And what I'm talking about here is where it talks about how many yards he had as a high school senior, how many carries he had as a high school senior, how many touchdowns, how many interceptions, whatever the case may be. Forget that is there. That has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on this game. It doesn't factor into any calculation, anything. It is simply eyewash, window dressing for the mind to make it look like more of a real football game. Doesn't matter whatsoever. Another thing that doesn't matter whatsoever is his height and weight. Yeah, we would like to believe that a 6'7", 400-pound offensive lineman is going to be a stud. But in this game, those numbers don't matter. The only things that matter are his core qualities, those categories and the values within those categories, and where you're going to position him. Your work ethic matters. Your potential for that particular player matters. Those things matters. It matters not what high school he went to, what stats he had in high school, none of that. So forget that is there. And the other thing you can forget about is that total number where you have his athleticism, his speed, all that stuff, all the way down through game instinct, elusiveness, technique, and then you've got that 3-digit total number. Forget that. That is simply a sum of all of his attributes. While some people look at it as a good indicator that it gives you an idea of how good he is overall, do you really want an offensive lineman? Let's say he's D2 and he's got a strength rating of 30 and a blocking rating of 29, but he has a tackle rating of 99. And it boosts that 3-digit total number up to where that number is equivalent to some of those other offensive linemen who are rolling with 60s and high 50s, low 70 blocking. Again, that 3-digit number, that total number is worthless when it really comes to identifying what it is that player can do for you in the position that he's slotted for. So look to those central core categories, the speed and elusiveness for your running back, your game instinct, technique, strength for your quarterback, offensive lineman with your technique, your blocking, your strength, etc. Those are the numbers that matters. Those are the ones you should compare against other recruits that you're looking at, other players. Now, don't worry about that total number. And if you're looking in your standings tab, where you can see team standings as far as the value of your team, not the win-loss record. It's a drop-down tab. That is all predicated on that 3-digit value. It doesn't look at the cores. It just looks at that 3-digit value. So don't think you've got a great team because you've got the best team when it comes to those 3 digits. It's probably a good team, let's face it. But is it really the best overall? Probably not. So anyway, that's my rant for today. Hopefully somebody's learned something from it. I know that some of the things can be a bit convoluted. Some of them can be a bit confusing. But as always, don't hesitate. Holler at me. Let me know if you've got any questions, if I can help in any way. More importantly, just stick with it, enjoy the game, and stick around for at least D2. At least get a year or two of D2 under your belt before you decide to leave the game, if you decide to leave. We hope you stick around. Join us next time on another episode of This, That, and the Other. I've been your host, Majique. We'll talk to you again later.